to say the most insane shit, appeal to white supremacist rhetoric and white supremacist social conditioning, okay, by talking about, you know, George Floyd being a criminal, or talking about how even though it is literally a fucking murder trial for a cop, talk about the victim there as though they deserved it, as they had it coming, which is what they did. Talk about how, you know, there were other underlying circumstances like drugs potentially, and maybe even the exhaust of the car and the carbon dioxide poisoning from the car. Maybe it was the curb's fault. So they engaged in, or they said the crowd was responsible for agitating the police officer, as though the police officer is just a weapon, a mere weapon, and not a human being who could be responsible for death. Or they tried to say that he was following the protocol, the police protocol. This is a regular fucking kneel on the neck procedure that should happen no matter what. That they were just following regular police protocol. And all of that's bullshit. And I think that all of that's bullshit, and that the defense showed that that was bullshit. The expert witness testimony that we heard also, I think, did a pretty good job of destroying that as much as they can. They said that it was the fault of some shit thing makes you have superhuman strength and feel no pain. I kid you not. What? And part of the reason why they had nothing is because it was so open and shut. It was sad what happened, but it wasn't murder and it wasn't racially motivated. It was actually manslaughter. Oh, fuck. That bait. I was trying to read it. I was about to unload onto that before you clapped them. I mean, it's very clearly a bait account, but yeah, fuck that. Good shit. Good. Yeah. Good clap. You're the actual racist for seeing race and everything. Yeah, no, you're right. The defense closing statements are psychotic. Of course they are.
Reasonable police officer. The reasonable police officer takes into account the safety of the person that they are arresting. They take into account what resources do I have based upon how close am I to a hospital? What's the expected time if I call EMS? Because a reasonable police officer at times, they got to put the person in their squad car sometimes and take them because they're farther away. Calling for help, bringing help in would take longer than it would simply to take the person directly.
Yes, we've moved on to the defense. This is Eric Nelson, the attorney of Derek Chauvin, speaking right now. The reason why I'm not showing the videos is because I'm afraid that they are going to cut into like the actual video from the scene of the murder, or like autopsies and whatnot, like autopsy reports and whatnot, that may or may not show like graphic imagery. And I know that they did, so I don't want to show that and get banned. And also on top of that, like pretty fucking traumatizing for people to see it over and over and over again. In the 3-hour closing statement that they put
together. And then
together.
You look at the direct knowledge that a reasonable police officer would have at the precise moment force was used.
No, they do it in closing arguments as well.
That includes information that they gather from dispatch, their direct observations of the scene, the subjects, and the current surroundings. They have to take into consideration whether the suspect was under the influence of a controlled substance. They can take into consideration, because again, this is a dynamic and ever-changing, just like life. Things change. It's a dynamic situation. It's fluid. They take into account their experience with the subject at the beginning, the middle, the end. A reasonable police officer tries to predict, or is at least cognizant and concerned about, future behavior.
Guys, I don't care if Mike from PA or Central Committee showed the video, okay? I'm not going to do that. I know that I am not At the liberty to do that, just
behavior
stop.
based upon past behavior. But the unpredictability of humans factors into the reasonable police officer's analysis too. Because sometimes reasonable police officers take someone into custody with no problem, and suddenly they become a problem. It can change in an instant.
Okay.
Talked about many of the
Their defense comes around to the conclusion that it was reasonable for him to believe that George Floyd was just pretending to be dying.
Many people talked about many of the officers talked about how
I gotta turn on the AC real quick.
It is not uncommon for suspects to feign or pretend to have a medical emergency to avoid being arrested. Unfortunately,
Yeah. Like, American police brutality is so fucking severe that, people, in an effort to try and unsuccessfully avoid that police brutality, they fake medical conditions. Let's not use this as an opportunity to analyze policing as a practice and how fucking brutal it is, and instead, use that as a justification. How could you fucking get away with saying that is a literal justification? Pretending to have a medical condition, especially in a situation where, like, the person literally died, okay? Yeah, he must have just been playing dead. As, my client was murdering him. He was thinking, well, he pretended to be dead. Yeah, well, sometimes you stab people and they pretend to be dead, so you keep stabbing them. That's how it works.
That is the reality. Nobody likes to get arrested, and reasonable police officers know that. How many times does someone oh, my heart hurts, or I'm having a medical emergency, insert whatever emergency, right? Simply because they...
Yeah, you don't fucking... What you're supposed to do as a reasonable officer is take that seriously, by the way, for the record. I don't know where the fuck he's going with this. Even if someone is pretending, who gives a shit? You take him to the fucking hospital, jackass. That's the whole point. The whole point is you don't know if the other person is actually... Bro, I swear to God, GTA roleplay cops are better at fucking being police officers than real life cops. It's insane to me. Like, it's insane. It's literally insane. Like, if your motto is protect and serve, you are supposed to protect and serve the community, okay? It's fucking insanity. What are you talking about? You can't take a person to not be lying to you? If you are a police officer responding to a crime or what you think is a crime, and the person that you are apprehending says that they are experiencing a medical situation, you are supposed to allow the experts or the EMT that's on the scene to immediately come in and, assess the situation. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what normal human beings do. Now, that is if they're actually even faking it. So what do you think happens? Do you think, like, when a fucking doctor sees you at the hospital, you get a second shot at escaping? Is that what you think? Is that how you think this works? You're still handcuffed, motherfucker. You're supposed to just still treat it as it's a real situation regardless. Because you don't know. Do you understand? When you handcuff someone, their health, their safety, their freedom is in your hands. Okay?
Don't want to go to jail.
Motherfuckers think like, I don't know, I guess like people legitimately think that, like, if you allow the EMT to talk to you, they're going to break you out of your handcuffs or something and let you get away? What? You're on the news, buddy? What?
Jail. A reasonable police officer will take his training into experience. And you heard Lieutenant Mercil specifically say that when someone says that they can't breathe, but they are talking, If they're talking, it means they're breathing, right? If they're talking, it means they're breathing. And again,
holy shit, that's really bad, dude. That is, Jesus Christ. It is fucking hard to... Nelson's closing argument features a video of Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's neck while a bystander tells him he trained at the police academy and that's some bullshit. You're stopping his breathing. Hard to fathom how this helps Chauvin's case. Eric Nelson, and there's a video here, so I'm not going to show you, says Derek Chauvin would have been justified in using even more force against George Floyd.
Officer Chauvin made a decision not to use higher levels of force when he would have been authorized to do that.
Remember, this is, hey, by the way, guys, this is the same argument that you heard. If you recall, this is the exact same argument that we heard from the other case, the other shooting in Chicago by the Chicago police union leader. That thumb went on fucking Face Nation? He went on CNN on national news and literally said, "Yeah, we shot. We shot Adam Toledo in the chest and murdered him. He's 13 years old, but we could have shot him harder." And we didn't. So that was an exercise in restraint, actually.
Including punches, kicks, elbows, right? All of these tools were available to Officer Chauvin. That is not an intent to purposefully use unlawful force.
People sleep in the prone position. People suntan in the prone position. People get
Just
massages in the prone position.
I've heard a lot about the prone position. Consider just the basic prone position. People sleep.
Yo, I think, like, you gotta just prone position this motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, Steven Crowder was too much of a fucking coward to actually recreate the scene. Like, just because people, I don't know, suntan in the prone position does not mean that they're suntanning on concrete with 3 motherfuckers on them, with the last one literally putting their knee in its entirety with their 1 foot off the ground on your neck to choke you out while simultaneously pulling your fucking hands behind your back that are handcuffed further away from your body in an effort to restrict your breathing. For 9 minutes.
In the prone position, people suntan in the prone position, people get massages in the prone position. The prone position in and of itself is not an inherently dangerous act. It is not an inherently dangerous act. A prone position during restraint is not an inherently dangerous act. It is routinely trained and used by the Minneapolis Police Department.
This is like saying, Your Honor, I know I threw the victim off of a bridge, okay, and he died, but people jump. Jumping is not inherently dangerous. So I thought maybe the person wouldn't die. I mean, that person has jumped in his history, living on this planet. You jump when you play basketball. You jump when you want to, I don't know, scale a height that you normally wouldn't be able to reach. So explain this. That's dumb, Hassan. It is entirely different. Okay? It is entirely different when you're literally choke slamming someone on a fucking concrete to turn around and be like, people sleep on their bellies, motherfucker. Do you not understand?
We've heard a lot about
It's psychotic.
Come into play here.
And then the judge cuts off Nelson's closing statement after 2.5 hours so the jury can get lunch, and then it'll resume after break. That was an hour ago.
I don't want to interrupt.
What do we gain by critiquing the defense? If the defense doesn't properly charge, there will be grounds for a mistrial? What do you mean? What do we gain from critiquing? What do you want me to do? So you don't want me to cover the story at all, then? This is what I do.
Now,
there was concern here that that Mr. Chauvin and you.
Sorry, they're
Now,
not.
there was concern here that that
This is the Special Assistant Attorney General Jerry Blackwell, okay, who is part of the rebuttal and the prosecution team, giving a rebuttal to the defense's closing argument currently.
Mr. Chauvin was concerned. And I won't say much more about body language than has already been discussed. And you'll decide for yourself whether that was the face of one who was afraid at the time. Because he had all of the power at this point. He had the bullets, guns, he had the mace that he threatened the bystanders with, he had backup, he had the badge, and he had all of it. And what was there to be afraid of here, particularly at this scene? There were 3 high school juniors there and a second grader who was going.
The decision is not today. There's rebuttals. The closing arguments are happening today. And then the jury will go in and deliberate. It could take days, depending on if it's quick. That means that I know my screen is not on stream and my face is 100% of the screen at the moment. The reason why my face is on screen rather than the video itself is because there is a lot of potential TOS violating imagery in the arguments that these people are making. So I do not want to show it to you. Also, it is really fucking traumatic to force people to relive this thing over and over again. Okay? That's why I'm not showing it. I don't know why every time we do this, we play the same song and dance where people will be like, so it's safe for national television but not Twitch? Yes, I do not make the rules. So yes, some things that are safe for national television are not safe for Twitch. I apologize. It is not. It is completely outside of my control. Take it up with Twitch. Don't take it up with me. Okay? That good?
Mr. Chauvin was concerned. And I won't say much more about body language than has already been discussed. And you'll decide for yourself whether that was the face of one who was afraid at the time. Because he had all of the power at this point. He had the bullets, guns, he had the mace that he threatened the bystanders with, he had backup, he had the badge, and he had all of it. And what was there to be afraid of here, particularly at this scene? There were 3 high school juniors there and a second grader who was going to the store to get candy. There was a high school senior who was taking her cousin to the store, a first responder on the scene. And there was Donald Williams, who wanted nothing more than to try to intervene, to try to save Mr. Floyd's life. Mr. Charles McMillan, a 61-year-old man, that if I gave him a name, I would call him the mayor of the neighborhood. He just likes to see what's going on and to look out for things, but he was simply there to try to intervene to try to save Mr. Floyd's life. So this wasn't the face of fear or concern or worry. You've seen what the face of fear and worry looked like that day at that time. That's what fear and worry looked like. When Mr. George Floyd was well aware that with one wrong move of his hand, one turn in the wrong.
I mean, it's not TOS. It's just traumatizing. Direction, sorry, it's just.
And it could be his last turn, that he could be shot to death over an investigation around a fake $20 bill.
No, that's not TOS, chat. That's not TOS. Stop. Don't say banned either. That's fucking annoying. It's not.
Now, you might wonder what's wrong with it. That's why they were upset. They didn't deserve to be called unruly because they weren't. And you will hear time and again, oh, the crowd was getting louder. Oh, the crowd was getting more agitated. Earlier in the trial, you hear, oh, they were getting angrier and angrier. And so we can't see somehow what it is they're getting upset around. The fact that a defenseless, helpless man is literally losing his life one breath at a time right in front of them, and there's nothing that they can do. If you love life, you get excited when you see life being taken, when that's your perception. That's what they were excited about. And if they all just simply wanted a donut in watching this, you might wonder what's wrong with them. That's why they were upset. They didn't deserve to be called unruly because they weren't. And you will hear time and again, oh, the crowd was getting louder. Oh, the crowd was getting more agitated. Earlier in the trial, you hear, oh, they were getting angrier and angrier. And so we can't see somehow what it is they're getting upset around. The fact that a defenseless, helpless man is literally losing his life one breath at a time right in front of them, and there's nothing that they can do. If you love life, you get excited when you see life being taken, when that's your perception. That's what they were excited about. And if they all just simply wanted a donut in watching this, you might wonder what's wrong with them. That's why they were upset. They didn't.
Yeah. He's right. I wish people wouldn't use such passive language. I mean, they're fucking professionals, chat. That's...
didn't deserve to be called.
And here is a counter to the carbon monoxide defense that they made. This is the defense making this argument, by the way. That was to attack and dismantle the argument that the defense put together. This is prosecution. Okay, so this is a rebuttal to the closing argument. So I already described to you what the closing arguments from the defense attorney, like Derek Chauvin's side, was. Like it's the carbon monoxide poisoning, it's the fentanyl in the blood, it's you know, the other people that were excited in the vicinity that also excited the officer, and the dynamic changed. You heard all of this stuff, right? So now he is countering each individual point. This is what they're supposed to do. They're giving rebuttals of the closing argument.
Whose car was it, ladies and gentlemen, that if Mr. Floyd is being subdued on the ground by Mr. Chauvin, and if he puts his face in front of a tailpipe of a car that's spewing out carbon monoxide...
Yeah, but this is actually a good point as well. If the crowd didn't react, the defense would then turn around and use that as an argument, saying it must not be excessive force. Exactly. Think about it. There were 20 people around, and not a single one of them actually reacted. If these citizens do not, who are applying common sense, do not think that this is like crazy, then how would an officer think that you know, this is going to respond to murder, especially at a time when you know that, like, you know, police brutality is in the forefront of everyone's minds. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, in every circumstance. Yeah, 45 fucking witnesses, dude. That's why I'm saying it's so open and shut. Oh, the dude literally just made this argument in the video?
Why isn't that an unreasonable use of force by an officer? In your custody is in your care. It's not in your custody.
Oh, in the previous video, like, yes, people that love life, of course, are getting excited. That's what you're saying.
I don't care.
Kind of, yeah.
In your custody is in your care. What reasonable police officer would apprehend someone on the ground, subdue them, and put their face in front of a tailpipe of a car and then think that's a defense? Here, not particularly fair. There's no evidence the car was ever even on. And you learned all you need to know, which was, if he was suffering from carbon monoxide, as Dr. Tobin told you, you wouldn't be able to get a 98% oxygen saturation from the oxygen they gave him artificially.
Isn't this too much trial by media now? The off chance this guy's innocent, he might still get full punishment? Wait, what? What do you mean he's innocent, dude? What the fuck are you talking about? The off chance that the guy might be innocent? What are you talking about? What off chance that is there that he might be innocent? Explain yourself, chatter. What? You keep hearing drugs in the car, and the drugs were... Oh, yeah, here.
Why are we talking about pills that are not in his system? We know what's in his bloodstream already. We know he struggles in the opioid addiction. Why are we talking about pills that we know were not in George Floyd? Why? You have to decide that for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Why is that even being brought up when we know what's in his bloodstream? What is the point? And you keep hearing drugs in the car, drugs in the car. And the drugs were one pill. One pill. It was not in George Floyd. And then the suggestion that he was somehow taking it in handcuffs in the police car, which makes no sense. There was no evidence of George Floyd taking any pills in the police car at all. There was a pill found there only. Why are we talking about it?
Wow, one entire pill. He's totally innocent. I mean, you realize, I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. Oh, you are being, okay. You weren't even being sarcastic. You were literally saying like one entire pill. Okay, good. I just never know. I just never know when motherfuckers are like trying to say some really idiotic shit. You know what I mean? Wait, let's. There's still closing arguments that are occurring at the moment.
State versus McDaniel. And the final argument to the jury, a prosecutor is governed by a unique set of rules, significantly from those governing counsel in civil suits. And even though
a close friend of mine lives close to the courthouse, they told me that they saw about 20 armored vehicles drive through town. I'm nervous that they know something we don't about the way the verdict is going down. No. They have no idea what the fucking jury is going to say. Are you crazy? No. No one except for the 12 people in that room are going to know what the fucking jury's take is until it is known. It's not, those are just regular precautions because, this is an obvious high profile case. Because they realize that if Derek Chauvin, despite all the damning evidence, is acquitted of murdering George Floyd in front of the entire world, basically, that all hell will break loose. And that's not me like threatening that that is going to happen or anything like that. It's me speculating that that will most likely happen. If he gets off free, what? If Chauvin is acquitted, there will obviously be riots. Do you think Chuz will do anything if he's convicted? I mean, a lot of the Chuds, like, unless they are mega Chuds, like straight Nazi motherfuckers, like, even a lot of the conservatives have also damned and criticized Chauvin. Guys, Pat Robertson, who is a literal fucking demon, he criticized Chauvin. Like, he doesn't have a lot of allies here. The only people that are aligned with him are either aligned because they are like mega racist, or they're aligned with him because they are supposed to, as his lawyer is supposed to defend him in a court of law. That's what he has a right to, that to have a attorney defend him in a court of law. So I don't even know what will happen here with respect to like conservatives defending Chauvin. I mean, Steven Crowder, yeah, he's a fucking piece of shit. Like, yeah. When you are able to penetrate the thin blue line, okay, and have your own police chief and have dispatchers and have a number of different people that are cops themselves criticize you and criticize your police practices, it's going to be very difficult to, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to fucking turn around and maintain a lot of support from even the conservatives. Okay? All it takes is one juror to decide that it's not beyond a reasonable doubt I mean, it's beyond, like, all it takes is for one fucking judge, not judge, one juror to assume that it wasn't manslaughter. Do you understand? Like, that will hold up the entire process and can change that. I fucking hate that. It doesn't matter. It's not. That is our justice system. And that actually helps in a lot of circumstances. Hasn't Chauvin also been involved in like 3 other deaths while being a cop? It doesn't matter. So listen, if this process takes longer, that's not necessarily a good thing. Because of how overwhelmingly the evidence has been on the side of the prosecutors. Wait, hold on. Did the judge overrule the mistrial here?
Part of their closing argument, and what else in their closing arguments stood out as really powerful to you today?
Well, in the closing of the prosecution and in the rebuttal, they worked a central theme, which was in your custody, in your care, and showing compassion. And that came up in a myriad of different ways. First, they set up that Mr. Floyd was not resisting, and they had a beautiful collection of, as he went through the facts, you know, every time he complied with an officer's order, every time he said, Mr. Police Officer, every time he said, please, every time he said, thank you. It was very effective. And then as they got into the evidence, it was just beautifully crafted and very well done, short, concise, and effective. And then when they had to come back on the rebuttal, that's when you really
we might not get a verdict. We might not get the jury. Like the deliberations might not end tonight. It might go in. It probably will go in tomorrow. I don't know how long it's going to take. I have no idea. I suspect it will be short, and I also additionally suspect that it being short is a good thing.
Him on the law that he'd given, but came back to that same theme.
If it's longer, it's not a good thing, though.
At the ending, it was very, very effective.
So, Caroline, let me ask you about the defense. They told the jury that officers are human beings capable of making mistakes in highly stressful situations. What did you think of that argument? Was that an effective way to go?
Well, that's really the theme that the defense has been, portraying from the get-go in this case. And the idea is, remember, the prosecution has charged 3 different crimes here, a defense to all of which is that Chauvin acted reasonably under the circumstances. And so that's why you hear this word reasonable over and over again out of the defense attorney's mouth. The idea is from Chauvin's perspective at the time, not in 2020. As we all know, hindsight is 2020. And I think that statement there was a little bit of a nod to the fact that, yes, obviously he would have done things differently had he known everything that we know now. But the argument that they're putting forth is that he acted reasonably under the circumstances, given everything that we now know in terms of what he was hearing on the ground. And so that's why they're expanding the view. They're broadening the view, taking it outside that 9 minutes and 29 seconds. They're saying it started much earlier. Here are the facts. Here's what Chauvin knew, and here's why he acted reasonably. That's the argument.
Right, but here's the problem with that.
You mentioned that this was central to the defense's argument.
Sorry. Here's the problem with how they handled it.
I have to run an ad right now, Chad. I'm sorry. I really fucked up the ads today, but you already know what the deal is, okay? I'm running an ad.
Then the reasonable part was gone, and then they were arguing other things. But he never really, in his closing, effectively dealt with the time period when Mr. Floyd was not resisting, was not responsive, when he was told that there was no pulse, when the fire person came in and said, I'm happy to give him CPR. He never dealt with that on the reasonable standard. And he spent so much time in windup, like it's some kind of the Lincoln Douglas debates. I was, was way too long. By the time he got to his best argument, which is the drug argument or the causation, everybody was asleep or not listening or doodling in the corner. It was very ineffective close for that reason, because it was way too long and did not get to the point in time.
So, Caroline, let me get your take on that, because so many people have remarked on how long the defense close was today. Your thoughts on the time they took, and if you were there, would you have done something different?
Look, it's hard to be in Eric Nelson's shoes. Is a difficult position, and I'm not going to really critique him for that. He's doing his job, and he's defending his client. He wanted to hit all the major points. I do agree with Cynthia that there's a gaping hole in his argument, which is that he tried to make the argument that this was like akin to a gunshot, like a split-second decision that you made in terms of the use of force. It's not that. Again, it's the water isn't wet argument that I call, which is he's trying to tell the jurors not to believe what they see with their own eyes on that video, which is clearly, like the prosecution is saying, believe what you see. Anybody that sees this video, even a 9-year-old witness, knows that what's going on is not right. I will say that, the defense went a long way in terms of mucking up the question about causation. And I do think that he misstated the law, but I wonder if that's going to help him out in the end, because he was quite confusing. There's a huge difference between a substantial factor in terms of cause of death versus the only factor in a cause of death. And the way that the defense was arguing it made it sound like the prosecution had to show that this was the only causal factor in the death, which is not actually the law. And I don't know that was clarified enough for the jury. And I think that could make a huge difference here.
Yeah, you make a great point. The confusion could actually help them. Cynthia, I want to ask about something that you tweeted about today. The defense comparing building a criminal case to making chocolate chip cookies. Here's that part of their closing argument. We'll talk on the other side.
A criminal case is kind of like baking chocolate chip cookies. You have to have the necessary ingredients. You've got to have flour and sugar and butter and chocolate chips and whatever else goes into those chocolate chip cookies. If you have all of the ingredients, you can make chocolate chip cookies. But if you're missing any one single ingredient, you can't make chocolate chip cookies. It's a simple kind of analogy. But the criminal law works the same way.
Cynthia, you tweeted today his metaphor's better off in a misdemeanor case. Let's talk about this and why you didn't like it.
Well, here's the thing. When you try cases, you have little things that you do all the time. And it's
Bro, I don't understand. Sorry, I don't care about the former federal prosecutor analysis on this. I got to give mine on this. Are they trying to lose? Like, maybe he's just trying to throw, dude. I think it seems like he was just trying to throw or something, because it literally trivializes the I guess maybe part of it is because he was trying to say, I guess he assumes that like potentially trivializing this makes it easier to
they have the law in black and white, and it's
yeah, trivializing this potentially makes it easier to fucking establish doubt in a jury's mind or something. I know what he's trying to say. I know he's trying to say you need to have all the elements in order to establish that there was murder here, like or there was wrongdoing here. Then you need to have all the elements, and the elements are not all there. I get what he's saying. The analogy is, I don't know.
So, Cynthia, now they are in that jury room. They're going to be deliberating. Obviously, we will not see what happens in that room. But what will you be watching for, whether it's, the time that passes, questions they ask? What do you watch for during jury deliberations?
Well, it's a very scary time. I would just guess, I'd be interested in Carolyn's feeling on this. I would just guess that today is all looking at, grabbing food and looking at exhibits, probably all day tomorrow too. This took a lot longer than I thought. So I would say probably Thursday at the earliest we get some kind of verdict. By about Thursday night, I would be sitting on my worry shelf, chewing my fingernails if I were the prosecutor. And until then, you're always looking for a note, and you're always dying to know who is the foreman of the jury or the foreperson of the jury for a woman, because then you think maybe that'll tell you some tea leaves.
Yeah. Okay. So Eric Nelson is now using. This was what was going on in the background. Eric Nelson is now using the Representative Maxine Waters saying that protesters would get more active and more confrontational if Derek Chauvin isn't convicted as a reason for a mistrial to be declared. He's claiming that she has threatened violence. Like what Maxine Waters is saying, that protesters should get more active and more confrontational if Derek Chauvin isn't convicted, does not mean that it's go out into the fucking streets and go crazy. Go buck wild. I think that's what they're saying, is that like the legal system is failing you. You should continue your protests. Here you go.
So, but my phone gives me alerts on things that just happened. I mean, you can't avoid it. And it is so pervasive that it is, I just don't know how this jury, it can really be said to be that they are free from the taint of this. And now
it's pretty pathetic. I mean, it's kind of it is a Hail Mary, like it's a Hail Mary that I feel like it's a Hail Mary that kind of demonstrates that he is not confident in his own argument.
Now that we have U.S. representatives threatening acts of violence in relation to the specific case.
But I guess also at the same time, it's like it's steady. It's great for an appeal. Like he has to say that kind of, right?
It's mind-boggling to me, Judge.
Well, I'll give you that Congresswoman Waters may have given you something on appeal that may result in this whole trial being overturned. But what's the state's position?
Your Honor, the state's position, first and foremost, and this is a concern I raised at the beginning of the proceedings, well into jury selection, is that we can't allow statements like this, vague statements, to be considered a part of the record on appeal. If there's a specific statement that a specific U.S. representative made, then there needs to be some sort of formal offer of proof with the exact quotes, the exact statement, or some kind of a declaration. And I'm sure Mr. Nelson can do that if he thinks that that's something that's appropriate. I don't know that...
Anyway, so that was the statement. The trial judge said that Representative Maxine Waters' statements might be a reason for the trial to be overturned on appeal, but the judge then denied the defense's motion to declare a mistrial. Breaking news. He said that he would hope elected officials would stop talking about the Derek Chauvin trial, but he adds one congresswoman's opinion won't make the difference. The defense wanted a mistrial, yes, because obviously they're trying to fucking get the client off as best as they can in any way they can. Oh, here it is.
Reports.
Here,
I'm aware that Congresswoman Waters was talking specifically about this trial and about the unacceptability of anything less than a murder conviction, and talk about being confrontational. But you can submit the press articles about that. This goes back to what I've been saying from the beginning. I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case, especially in a manner that is disrespectful to the rule of law and to the judicial branch and our function. I think if they want to give their opinions, they should do so in a respectful and in a manner that is consistent with their oath to the Constitution, to respect a co-equal branch of government. Their failure to do so, I think, is abhorrent, but I don't think it has prejudiced us with additional material that would prejudice this jury. They have been told not to watch the news. I trust they are following those instructions, and that there is not in any way a prejudice to the defendant beyond the articles that we're talking specifically about the facts of this case. A congresswoman's opinion really doesn't matter a whole lot.
Is that a judge trying to restrict the speech of an elected congresswoman from the bench? If Biden said something similar, do you think the mistrial would occur? Probably. I don't know. I actually don't know. I mean, it's kind of up to the judge, but it's fucking nuts that I don't know. I really don't know, guys. I'm sorry. I really don't know how that would work. Well, what I'm saying is like I don't know if the responsibility is on the jurors themselves, on the jury, like individual jury members have to exercise restraint, I think. Jurors in the Chauvin trial were instructed that there is no court transcript available for them to review, so they will have to use their notes, which would seem a reasonable thing to say if it were 1821. Why is that? I don't know. If that's normal or not. For the record, it might be. Especially because the court transcripts, that's not normal. No, but court transcripts, don't they literally have like parts of the record that have been struck off the fucking record? I guess like redacted court transcripts would exist, right? Kind of sad that you're defending a drug. What the fuck? What, dude? What the fuck? Why are people like creating sock accounts to say the exact same thing, brother? You're not gonna turn anyone's opinion here. I've heard it so many times that you're not even triggering me if that's what you think you're gonna. If that's what you think you're gonna get out of it, like with your sock account, it's not even happening. Anyway, okay. Here, jurors, read the transcripts that are written in shorthand from this multi-week trial. I don't know what it looks like usually. I'm sorry. I just don't know. If I knew, I would tell you.
Together and get it done. Allison.
Leanne, the New York Times is reporting that since the testimony began in the Derek Chauvin murder trial on March 29th, at least 64 people have died at the hands of law enforcement nationwide, with Black and Latino people representing more than half of the dead. As of Saturday, the average was more than 3 killings a day. Is that adding to a sense of urgency on Capitol Hill at all?
It is that you have that news story that was really shocking alongside the potential outcome of the Chauvin trial, and it absolutely was, and that is perhaps going to push people to work even perhaps more quickly. Representative Karen Bass was on CNN over the weekend. Let's listen to what she had to say.
The verdict is step one, but what we've seen in too many of these cases, in the rare time there is a guilty verdict, we have seen people get off with minimal sentences. And so it is absolutely both. Now, we don't know how long it will take after the verdict that the judge will impose sentencing, so it could be a while. But I worry that both are flashpoints. And as you mentioned, during the time of this trial, we have learned of other people who have experienced violence at the hands of the police.
So, Allison, people on Capitol Hill, just like people across the country, are bracing for the outcome of this trial, and Congress is hoping that they're able to address this larger picture at some point, perhaps relatively soon, regarding policing in this country. Allison.
All right, Leanne Caldwell on Capitol Hill. Thank you. The 19-year-old who shot and killed 8 people at a FedEx facility in Indianapolis.
Okay. Feeling GTA soon. Might make a spreadsheet later. I don't know. Hey guys, it's been 2 hours and 50 minutes since the beginning of the stream, and I'm still talking about politics. But if I, move on to coverage of lighter news, it might be considered like not political, so, I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to watch John Oliver, but also at the same time, like, is that going to be political enough for the political frogs? John Oliver was talking about bankruptcy. I don't know if that's like inherently political. I don't know what the line is. You know what I mean? So. I think I still need to fill my quota. Yeah, guys.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns
people who are saying that's just one guy have not seen my Twitter responses, for the record. Like, there's motherfuckers who are still, like, to this moment being like, dude, yeah, he's washed now. He's just like, his community grew to a size where he just like doesn't care about politics anymore.
Bankruptcy.
I hear it
You
all the
probably know
time.
from being the worst possible outcome on Wheel of Fortune, aside from hugging Pat Sajak or winning a Mitsubishi Mirage. Or maybe you're familiar with it through ads for bankruptcy lawyers like this one.
Once upon a time, there was a fair maiden named Mary. Mary lived a storybook life until her Prince Charming was smashed from his steed. Then her castle came under siege, and the cries of assault were vexing. Her champion had been gravely injured, and a pox had fallen upon her house.
I've helped thousands of clients like Mary, and I can probably help you get a fresh start.
Wow, there is a lot there. From an unmarked van fully mean-girlsing Mary's husband to him surviving what appear to be surprisingly minor injuries, to that lawyer claiming he's helped thousands of clients like Mary, meaning that in the Chattanooga area there are somehow thousands of women who've watched their husband get shit-stomped by a cargo van and then take what can only be described as a Gatling gun of mail to the face. If that is true, they've got a way more lucrative lawsuit than a bankruptcy case. What that ad is promising, though, is really attractive. A fresh start from your debts. And it's something a lot of people have turned to. Over the past decades, the number of personal bankruptcies filed each year has ranged from about 800,000 to 1.5 million. And many worry that once the current pandemic assistance stops, more and more people will need the type of help that bankruptcy offers. Because very basically, bankruptcy is a legal procedure by which those who are deeply weighted down by debts can get out from underneath them and then have a chance to start anew, which is good. Although it does come with some consequences. It will be on your credit report, and there tends to be some social stigma attached, as exemplified in this clip from Shark Tank.
Jeff, I understand your decision to go bankrupt. Cleans the slate. But it carries a weight. You'll never have a bank, Jeff. Ever. To me, you're radioactive.
There are 1 million people out there who are going to get the wrong message from what you're saying.
No, they're getting the right message. They should not go bankrupt.
Well, hold on, because that is a terrible lesson. And you, Kevin O'Leary, I hardly want to be calling someone's decisions radioactive, given that you invested in companies with business models like put your face on a potato, look like an idiot on a unicycle, and Toy-Garoo, the Netflix for toys whose mascot always looked like it was searching for a place to take a shit. And, which interestingly, filed for fucking bankruptcy. So I'm sorry, Kevin, but to me, that makes you radioactive. I'm out. But that broad brush stigmatization is common and completely misguided. Because bankruptcy is not solely caused by bad decisions. It's often caused by bad luck, unavoidable challenges like job loss, divorce, surprise medical bills, or perhaps even, a once-in-a-century global pandemic. And despite bankruptcy often being characterized as an easy out, the way it's currently set up, it's sometimes not an out at all, as this couple learned.
Before you're done and over with, you're definitely looking to spend at least $1,000 to claim bankruptcy. We don't have $1,000. So
you're telling me you can't afford.
We can't afford
to go bankrupt.
To go bankrupt.
America, baby.
Yet we're $50,000 in debt. So what do we do?
Yeah, a lot of people can't afford to go bankrupt. A true sentence that fundamentally doesn't make sense. Like Sonic drive-ins advertised in cities where there are no Sonic locations, or the sequel to Now You See Me wasn't called Now You Don't, or Elon Musk doesn't fuck his cars. I mean, come on. That is the face of a man who's at the very least measured the circumference of the charging point. So given all of that, tonight, let's take a look at personal bankruptcy. Our modern bankruptcy code was enacted in 1978. Interestingly, around the same time that the credit card industry began to enjoy a period of steady deregulation, which worked out very well for them because they marketed themselves aggressively, and during this time, consumer debt began to sharply rise. And what the industry clearly wanted was people stuck in a lucrative cycle of minimum payments, late...
We watched it already. We don't... I don't know. I just don't think that... I don't think that it was the same. If I said basketball, give us a sign if you're actually watching, like... and I don't remember saying, was it basketball or was it cussy?
Late fees and interest.
Then he probably is not listening, or he probably doesn't have like writers that watch rap porn at 620 and 640. Yeah.
What they didn't want spoiling that was people cutting the cycle short through bankruptcy. So by the late 90s, they were lobbying senators like Chuck Grassley hard to curb what they framed as bankruptcy abuse, basically arguing that people who could afford to pay were using bankruptcy as an easy way to not pay bills and then pass the costs on to the rest of us. And Grassley seemed more than happy to repeat some of the industry's talking points.
There's not a single family in America, low income or high income, that is not paying part of the cost of bankruptcy. $40 billion cost to the economy every year. $400 for a family of four.
Wow. The average family pays $400 a year because deadbeats abuse the system. Grassley dropped that shocking fact with the confidence of a man who would later tweet from his government account, Windsor Heights Dairy Queen is good place for you-know-what. The thing is, though, that $400 figure is total nonsense. No one knows for certain where it came from, and despite it turning out to be demonstrably false, the credit card industry pushed it hard to create a narrative of widespread irresponsibility and abuse around bankruptcy. But it's a little hard to take moral grandstanding from credit card companies who were all too happy to help people get into significant debt, even if they had just declared bankruptcy.
Barely out of bankruptcy court, Joan Burnett opened her mailbox and there it was. The chance for a shiny new credit card, the first of many.
It looked like an easy $3,000, and I think I hung on to it for a day, and then I thought, oh no, you're not going to be that crazy.
The banks are giving out credit with a reckless disregard for the consumer's ability to repay.
Yeah, that Max Weinberg impersonator is absolutely right. And so, by the way, was Joan, whose self-restraint I really do admire there. Imagine the expenditures that I could have avoided by simply saying, no, John, you're not going to be that crazy. Ask yourself, do you really need this item? But years of lobbying by the credit card and banking industry
I like that the
ultimately
moms
resulted
were worried
in a
about the
hugely
furry,
significant...
like the rat, they're like, dude, there's rat porn. Like, that's not fucking anything, dude. Like, that's not, like... In the words of me from a while back, it's not even good rat porn. Okay? As I have been known to say in the past, like a fucking idiot.
2005 Bankruptcy Reform Bill, which made it far more complicated to file for bankruptcy than it had previously been, which in turn made it far more costly, which meant many people ended up in a situation where they couldn't afford to go bankrupt. And to understand our current system, a key thing to know is that there is not one main kind of personal bankruptcy. There are actually two, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is what you commonly think of as bankruptcy. Your debts are mostly wiped out, and while you can hold on to a few essential assets below a certain threshold, the rest can then be sold to pay off your creditors. It takes a few months to complete, but then you do get your